When I first started focusing on crypto and blockchain, of course, I asked myself, well, what's unique about this space? And of course, I quickly realized that the element of transparency as it relates to blockchain manifests its way for good and for challenge in this world of security.
I have my entire landscape of cybersecurity. I have my SOC operation, NDR. I have my incident response team. I have my advisory for some preventive cybersecurity. And all of a sudden, boom, I have to do DLT, I have to do smart contract. And many of those components have no meaning at all. We spoke about IOC, Index of Compromise. Nothing valuable for me in that new context. How do I deal with that? It's a pleasure to be here today with the Executive Director of Crypto, ISAC, and to have this fireside conversation with you, Justine. As far as I am concerned, I am the CEO of Halborn, and the mission of Halborn is very clear. It is to protect the integrity, innovation of decentralized technologies. So we work at the intersection of cybersecurity, financial infrastructure, and Web3. And we are very much convinced that security is an enabler, is a business enabler, and it must scale alongside this adoption of DLT, adoption of crypto, adoption of all things Web3 in the traditional financial institution. And myself, I am coming from more from the off-chain world. I was CEO of a managed security services company, what we call today MDR, Managed Detection and Response, with incident response, with security advisory services. So all that in the traditional Web2 landscape. And because of that hat, I have been now for almost 1 year the CEO of Halborn, which is a leading provider of Web3 cybersecurity. But more than that, as I just said, I believe I am quite able to compare and to qualify and define the do's and don'ts for Web3 security moving forward. But more importantly, how can Web3 security be part of the supply chain of the larger financial institution? And how do we need to up our game to be compatible with the requirements of those big banks? So for us at Halborn, the partnership with Crypto ISAC is a natural extension of our vision. We believe that this industry, this Web3 industry today, is quite fragmented. This ecosystem is fragmented with L1 protocol, wallet, custodian, DeFi apps, and you name it. And because of that fragmentation, but also because of the complexity, or it has been growing fast, it's very vulnerable to a lot of attack vectors and kill chains. And we believe at Halborn that a single entity cannot manage that by itself. And that what is really important is that we come to a level of partnership in the ethical actors of that business to make sure that we are aligned, we share best practices, and we leverage the knowledge of that entire industry. And honestly, Crypto ISAC, you are really providing that platform to our industry. So it's a real pleasure to have this conversation with you today, Justine.
Likewise, Jacques, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited about the collaboration between the Crypto ISAC and Halborn, who are a founding member of Crypto ISAC. We're a little over 1 year old now, so we're still in a relatively early stage. But our mission is very much aligned with Halborn's. So we are all about enhancing trust in, technically we call it crypto asset and blockchain technologies. So blockchain, or you could even extend that to DLT, as you mentioned, and its use cases of all kinds, addressing the threat landscape and risk management as it relates across all of the use cases and the infrastructure related to DLT and blockchain. So ISAC's information sharing and analysis centers are not a new concept. Other sectors within critical infrastructure also have an ISAC, but until recently, crypto ISAC did not. Myself, executive director, my career began in the security research, vulnerability research space. So, looking at offensive techniques, a lot of reverse engineering, a lot of development of tools and technologies to help what today we call red teaming. And that grew into software security and leading security teams within enterprise. I served as a CISO in New York at Bloomberg and at Dow Jones. And I've also had the opportunity to indulge my entrepreneurial spirit. So I've helped build a couple of cybersecurity companies, taken the lead in a couple of initiatives, including some time spent in the healthcare industry. And initially started volunteering with some colleagues in industry on building the crypto ISAC a couple of years ago. I had engaged with other ISACs in other capacities during my career, and it was really a unique opportunity to lend a variety of responsibilities that I've held through my career and apply that to building the crypto ISAC. So we're all about bringing together stakeholders within the crypto industry to collaborate and share information. A big chunk of that means cyber threat intelligence, which is its own discipline within information security. So we're very focused on info sharing, threat intel sharing in various ways, and we can talk more about that. But to your point, Jacques, it's about breaking down those silos and really allowing teams to come together in a trusted, safe space that's independent. We're a nonprofit, and sort of create that environment where our members, who are companies within the crypto industry of various kinds, can really collaborate together and understand threats, share information, and respond to incidents that are impacting our industry.
So it's a great background for an exciting mission, right?
100%. And I neglected to mention that my personal career started in government service, and that's also been useful because a big part of any ISAC, crypto ISAC included, is public-private collaboration. So we're working with various stakeholders on the government side as well as they address the ongoing challenge of crypto-enabled crime. And of course, there's the evolving policy, best practices, frameworks, and standards track as well that the crypto ISAC also contributes to. So as we start to mature our processes and our governance within our companies in the crypto industry, crypto ISAC is also doing what we can to move that forward as well.
Yeah, I believe in an industry where we don't have yet the gold standard, and we will speak about that later on. We will have the opportunity to speak about that later on one more time. I believe that this mission of being a kind of a beacon in terms of threat intelligence, which is absolutely central to what we want to accomplish in cybersecurity for mixed web-to-web environment, is definitely extremely important for ecosystem. And I was just thinking about two things. So we are in a very specific time with a big adoption, acceleration, change of legislation and regulation leading to this acceleration. So we have a positive momentum for DLT, or decentralized technologies, but we have also a massive increase of the attack surface. And I was just thinking about this attack surface recently. And I will tell you the journey for me in that attack surface and why we have so many new kill chains and attack vectors. If you think about it, 2009, we had one single dedicated, one currency, single threaded cryptocurrency blockchain called Bitcoin. Then 2015 with Ethereum, that environment really grew significantly in terms of complexity, adding a virtual compute environment, adding the sheer notion of a smart contract, adding much more different type of clients, addressing and accessing the blockchain. And then if we look at now, fast forward to now, we still have all those layers of complexities, But on top of that, we have interoperability at scale. We have bridges, of course, we have Oracle, but not only that, we have also the sheer notion of custodian and also the interoperability and the interface between custodian, which is essentially Web 2 and Web 3. So we have seen an incredible growth of complexity, okay? While at the same time, adoption was accelerating. So you have a scale effect both on the vertical axis, you have a scale out and a scale up effect, basically. And what we see in many of our customer engagement is that there is a kind of over-reliance on what we call smart contract assessment. Banks, they don't like the word audit. So smart contract.
No, well, they're technically correct. I actually like that you've identified that.
Without continuous security validation, we have seen also poor key lifecycle management. So this private key lifecycle management is still very much, I would say, in the cradle for many institutions and companies. And also people, this composability, what I was referring to, with bridges, with cross-chain interaction, cross-chain currency exchange, has been quite neglected. So we believe at Halborn that we need to have a totally different pivot into that, and that we should see and learn much more of clusters of similar attack, airdrop targeted phishing, protocol specific re-entrancy exploit, governance manipulation. To all those patterns have led to multiple incident and hack already in the first half of the year. So we can think about GMX V1 in July, 40 million drain. So it was a typical re-entrancy vulnerability in a legacy protocol. The Cetus protocol in May this year, which exploited integer overflow. So really, I would say the 101 of cybersecurity in the world with 200 million loss. CoinDCX, very recently in July, where hackers could siphon up 44 million from India's second largest decentralized crypto or centralized crypto exchange, actually. So that's really happening at scale. What are your thoughts?
Oh gosh, so many thoughts. Circling back, first of all, to what you've talked about in terms of the threat attack surface and complexity. We all appreciate in security that complexity brings opportunity for threat actors and challenge for defenders. And 100% agree, the complexity of Web3, if you will, which ultimately is layered on Web 2 infrastructure, creates more opportunity for threat actors in an industry that's exploded extremely quickly. And we all also understand that these technologies that are rapidly developed usually factor in exposures that unfortunately are typically addressed later in the sort of maturity journey of an organization or a technology platform's roadmap. So here we are in crypto with that sort of similar model. One way that I think about the sort of crypto threat landscape, if you will, is I divide it into three buckets. And I think about the infrastructure itself. So the blockchain itself, for example, the layer 1, layer 2 protocols, the wallet technology, the key management technology, the security infrastructure that gets built into that. So sort of the infrastructure part of blockchain. That's got its own security issues. It's got threat actors going after specific vulnerabilities within that lens, if you will. Then you've got things that are built on and around blockchain, including decentralized and centralized capabilities, such as custodians, exchanges that might be more centralized, as well as the distributed apps and the DeFi, the distributed finance solutions that are also getting built. So there's a sort of layer on top, which includes and extends to Web 2, so, web-facing websites and infrastructure and vulnerabilities that go with that, endpoint problems, mobile device problems that we're all familiar with. And then, of course, you've got the human factor. And that's, for me, this sort of third group, if you will, of stakeholders or actors within that sort of threat landscape, and you've got users that are intentional blockchain crypto users. Maybe they're early adopters. Maybe these are high net worth individuals who invested early and suddenly became exposed unexpectedly. We've seen this even manifest in terms of operational and physical security threats against industry stakeholders. Then you've got the sort of unintentional crypto users, maybe the victims of scams, those who are driven towards crypto as a platform to transfer assets. And that's a really big problem in and of itself. As we all know, fraud and scams are, take a lot of focus within the threat landscape at large. And then you've got, of course, just general human vulnerability and social engineering vulnerability and our propensity to want to curious and open things and click on things, and vulnerability to being manipulated through other methods. And so there's sort of the infrastructure, the stuff built on and around it, and then the users and the human element is one way that I try to sort of look at the complexity of the threat landscape. And you've got threat actors, of course, going across that whole spectrum, chaining vulnerabilities together to exploit and gain control of whatever the goal is. Usually it's money. And of course, we could talk more about how, digital assets and money are really built into this entire infrastructure, which arguably makes it, well, actually probably provably makes it a more lucrative target, perhaps, than traditional infrastructure and Web 2 infrastructure.
I like the way you think about those things, because we relate in two aspects. We just discovered before that we were both, and I am still in healthcare business, which is one thing. And the other thing is that you come from the traditional, like me, I call that the classic perimeter, the Web 2 cybersecurity perimeters. But when you speak, what really comes out is a weak link, the human factor. It's always a weak link. Okay, so that's why traditional organization, they can be a bank, since we are speaking about crypto today, but any organization, any mission critical organization or critical infrastructure organization, they are doing two things. They are doing cybersecurity awareness campaign, and they are also doing multi-factor authentication. And if you think about MFA, just MFA, it could have stopped so many of those hacks we have seen happening on the Web3 world just lately, okay? And that come back to one of the points I was making before, making a smart contract assessment, not audit. However good you do that, you are not then safe from those traditional attack vector we know very well from the classical cybersecurity perimeter. And since, we will speak about, I'm sure we'll speak a little bit about gold standard and framework, but those gold standard and framework, which could help perhaps, and that may be something where crypto ISAC could contribute to move toward more alignment in those behavior, in those policies within the DeFi world, So that then when DeFi become part of supply chain of a TradFi, of a large bank, they are not looked down as being, they are a threat by themselves, which is slowing down then the adoption of all those new financial instruments. So weak link, the classical perimeter, it's very important to apply the same recipes at a bare minimum, and also to think about how we can bring that industry, that crypto DLT industry. DLT, I think it's a better word, because it really describes the entire ecosystem.
So crypto is very, very.
It's a class of assets. Crypto for me is a class of assets,
Yeah, well, I mean, like for people like me, old schoolers like me, I used to get hung up on the cryptography versus crypto interpretation of that when it comes to anything in blockchain or DLT, to your point. So yeah, I think we still have a challenge connecting with the larger
clients for the broader public, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, correct. Yeah.
So so that's a little bit of thinking, but this human being the weak links, that's key. Think about also insider threats. We have plenty of cases of insider threat as well. And how you deal with that? You deal with that with preventive cybersecurity.
Thank you so much for switching gears to talk about prevention. When I first started focusing on crypto and blockchain, of course, I asked myself, well, what's unique about this space? And of course, I quickly realized that the element of transparency as it relates to blockchain manifests its way for good and for challenge in this world of security. One thing I love about blockchain and transparency is the fact that we all have so much more visibility into an incident. This is not a Web2 opaque issue where maybe there's a regulator requiring a disclosure. Yeah. This is the whole world knows about it. It happened 30 seconds ago and everybody's talking. Where's the CEO? Because we need them online on YouTube, right?
They precisely at the comma how many dollars have been stolen.
Yes.
At stake.
Just that fact alone is just so different. And it manifests itself in there are technical implications in terms of the response and what we do and the understanding. And of course, the focus on tracing assets, tracing funds and trying to recover funds. And there's a huge amount of activity in that part of the sort of the kill chain, if you will, in terms of identifying an incident, getting all the resources that make sense that are available onto tracing funds. And gosh, look at the way the community comes together on that. So many volunteers out there, as well as law enforcement and agencies, investigators, firms that assist in that, and then onwards. And hopefully some of those funds get recovered. And I think we do have a few sort of success stories out there from time to time. We're getting better at that. But it's like halfway along, if not further along, on the kill chain. We've got all this stuff that happens leading up to that incident. So when you and I, we talk about the sort of defense in depth and how we need to bring that culture and all of these lessons learned from Web2. I sort of feel like that's where a lot of it applies, is what can we do to better understand the threat landscape pre-incident? My day-to-day, I'm thinking about things like indicators. Where can I extract indicators and trends and information that helps industry understand what it takes to lead up to one of these incidents, whether it's a vulnerability in your infrastructure or whether it's tracking the activity of threat actors? What can we do to help prepare for the incident, or even better, prevent the incident from happening? And there's a lot of opportunity to mature our thinking and our activities at that earlier stage in the kill chain, pre-incident. Not saying that we've got it all figured out during the incident and following. We've got a lot to do there still as well. But I do feel that there's an opportunity to really mature quite quickly in that earliest shifting left, if you will, on the threat, the kill chain, to think about data, IOCs, threat actor activities, and other forms of intelligence. And so a big part of our focus is on that. And by the way, also helping develop frameworks to help develop methodologies across this kill chain, if you will, as it applies to crypto and DLT.
Now, that's really exciting. So it leads me to one thought and one question. And the question, it's a challenging question, and I'm very curious about your answer. But first, let me tell you how we are trying to look at those things at Halborn. We are intensively engaged with customer under the mantra of secure by design, okay? Which is security has not to be an afterthought, but should be deeply embedded in all the development cycles, in the software development life cycle, actually. And we are working with several customers nowadays. So back to your taxonomy of the environment. So we have those layer 1, layer 2. So with layer 1, layer 2, doing a complete secure by design, which starts with doing research with them, doing threat intelligence. That's where our collaboration comes into play. Then doing, of course, code review, but doing at the end the full CI/CD life cycle, accompanying the release, and at the end, doing the assessment with penetration testing, and you use the word red teaming. So that's something that we do at scale, which positions us completely differently from a pure traditional in Web3 smart contract auditor. So that's really the thought from our perspective. But now the question. You described the entire chain in a very interesting manner before the incident. So threat intelligence, all the preparation, during the incident, and after the incident. After the incident, let me call that forensic and law enforcement, some of the things you mentioned yourself. And pre-incident, that's what we have been discussing with preventive. But during the incident, and that's really the big difference for me, from my perspective, with my experience between on-chain and off-chain, between Web 2 and Web 3. Because if you have a ransomware in a traditional critical infrastructure environment, you have hours to identify. So in this of compromise, the IOC to take action and react. And you have this full concept of what I call SOAR, so security orchestration and automated response, which is really the right thing to do. But now, fast forward in Web 3, when they are in, they are out. Because when they are on chain, the money is gone, which then leads me to the following. So I was running a big operation of managed detection and response, where we were really we were able to intervene, to stop, to analyze, and to plug gaps in the infrastructure early enough so that we could prevent real bad things to happen. And we're collaborating with law enforcement. But in Web 3, you have no time for that. You have no time for SOAR. So what's your perspective on that? We have once a monitoring tool that will enable us to do, like in a classical MDR, to do SOAR, stop the bad guys? Or is that a dream that will never happen? What do you think?
You're right. It's a hard problem. It's a multifaceted problem because of, to your point, these assets, this money, if you will, is literally baked into the infrastructure. So unlike in a ransomware attack where a threat actor needs to gain their foothold, there's a whole bunch of work that goes into that, right? But they gain their foothold and they move laterally and they gain a really big foothold. Lateral movement, exactly. Then there's the action, which may be freezing computers or stealing data. And then the actor. So maybe this is the point where the victim becomes aware there's an issue. Oh gosh, our data just left, or oh gosh, we can't log in this morning. But meanwhile, you've got threat actors with their hands on data and they've still got to monetize that, right? They've got to maybe negotiate and try to extort the victim. There's the question of maybe helping the victim recover that.
Somewhere negotiation,
Yeah, exactly. Maybe there's an insurance provider involved. There's a conversation that happens. This just seems cute and antiquated for us in crypto at this point. There's this whole window of time where people can chat. And that doesn't happen in crypto.
Full in crypto. That would be a dream.
So nice. Just put a big pause on everything while we figure out what we want to do. No, that's not the truth. The money, which was baked into the target infrastructure,
has running finance. That's what.
Yeah. So threat actor, yay, take advantage of that. It's gone. And there is still some challenge for threat actors, and increasingly so, right? As we see compliance programs develop and we see regulations requiring enhanced due diligence on know your customer rules and anti-money laundering compliance requirements, we start to see this delineation between those that comply and play nice in terms of crypto capabilities and companies, and then we see this sort of other, and I want to say the other is shrinking. So we are making traction in terms of helping investigators follow the funds, maybe freeze the assets, work towards recovering them, but the fact is they are gone. So that whole interim stage that happens in a ransomware attack where there's negotiations and then the threat actor has to convert that asset, monetize that data.
Response. As a defender in Web 2, they have a grace period.
Right. When there's a grace period. They might argue with us, Jacques. They might say, forget about it. That did not feel like a grace period. But if you look at it through a crypto lens,
it's stealing.
Yeah, because the threat actors ultimately have to monetize that theft It's still got to do that. And that it comes instantly monetized in crypto, doesn't it, for the threat actor? So huge problem. One of the other cool things that I love about blockchain is there is some hope. And there are some really sophisticated companies out there developing simulation technology, for example, transaction simulations where they sort of run the what if scenario through the engines before the transaction actually takes place on chain. That helps really raise visibility and capabilities for organizations.
Preventive. It's still preventive.
100%, 100%. I've sort of switched gears from the incident to what happens before because
Because the question to you was NDR, Managed Detection and Response, which is, you know what? I would say the gold standard for SOAR, which is what I said before, security orchestration and automated response. I don't see. Do you see that happening for blockchain?
I think that you're asking a somewhat, well, it's, as you said, it's a challenging question. And I think this is a question that is keeping our institutions awake at night right now because they've got this concept of blockchain infrastructure as immutable and ephemeral and automated. And, you know, this is code that will run according to rules. And to raise the concept of a sort of a human intervention in that, or a SOAR intervention in that, is controversial. It's difficult. It's a challenging scenario to address. And I see companies thinking about this now and thinking about where that sensible balance is between risk management and enabling potential interference with that automation, whilst continuing to deliver on the philosophy and culture and capability of what blockchain brings to the table. It is a real challenge, and I can't pretend to know what the answers are. But
and time window and end, right?
Yes.
But you know what? Now, if we elaborate a little bit, and we are on an interesting track, so I will continue to elaborate on this one. Okay. Now I am the CISO of a large bank. Okay. I have my entire landscape of cybersecurity. I have my SOC operation, NDR. I have my incident response team. I have my advisory for some preventive cybersecurity. So and all of a sudden, boom, I have to do DLT, I have to do smart contract. And many of those components have no meaning at all. We spoke about IOC, Index of Compromise. Nothing valuable for me in that new context. How do I deal with that? How do I switch gear to be able to combine those two things together? That's for me hit topic.
Yeah, I think about this a lot too. And maybe those governance models, maybe it's time for a bit of an upgrade. Maybe they don't necessarily apply to risk management as it relates to DLT and solutions built on top of it. I've even begun to dislike the term IOC, to be quite frank with you, because it is so reactive. Compromise. An indicator of compromise means you've been compromised. It is. It's too money gone. So other indicators, indicators that give us insight at an earlier stage in the kill chain, those indicators are what we also need to focus on. So maybe we've got a scenario here of threat intelligence being more of a shared responsibility throughout an organization, throughout a team, as opposed to that sort of siloed component of maybe an incident response capability, or maybe a small part of a larger SOC unit, where it's more a part of the day-to-day program a little bit more holistically. Because IOC, indicator of compromise, too late, guys, in crypto. Compromise is too late.
I fully agree. So it's a long chapter, and this chapter has not been written yet completely. And I hope that between Crypto ISAC and ourselves and all the partner around around that galaxy, we can really make that thing evolve. But now I would say that we can switch gear and speak a little bit about those gold standard, okay, that are we use that at scale are really missing. So I will tell you a quick story. So at Halborn, because we are serving more and more large financial institutions coming with this hybrid challenge of cybersecurity, which is a combination of Web 2 and Web 3, we are SOC 2 Type 2 certified. But for us, it's not simply, a rubber stamp or a badge of honor. We are really trying to make that as a crucial part of our service delivery activities. For instance, just yesterday, we had a short briefing with our entire service delivery organization, all our security engineers crew, where we put again in evidence how stringent the requirement of the certification are for the company and how much they serve the purpose of delivering the best possible service, so protecting at best our customer. So for us, it's really a strategic signal to our customer, to the financial institution, that we operate at the same level of, I would say, of credibility, and maturity, absolutely, as they do, because we are part of their supply chain, finally.
100%.
When you are dealing with those regulated players, with those large banking custodian, this maturity is absolutely critical. But what I can also say is that, and we touched on that just in the beginning of our conversation, we have also a big zoo in the Web3 world in terms of standards and framework. Okay, we have we have the BSSC blockchain security standard. We have the CCSS cryptocurrency security standard. We are ourselves. We are, for instance, as far as blockchain security standard is concerned, we are co-authors of token integration and key management standards. But we are also working with CVE. We have a CNA, so a CVE number. We do all those things, but we are missing the gold standard. And what we did, and I will just finish on that to have your thought, we developed our own standard for assessing the vulnerability of a blockchain. So really sort of copy paste of CVSS, CVSS,
Yeah.
or for this vulnerability scoring system, and we have developed blockchain vulnerability scoring system. Also with two axes, impact and risk of occurrence, but also with the dimension of what's the scope and how can we recover and really be able to quantify the vulnerabilities. What do you think about? Do you believe that we will converge at some point on specific standards adopted by everyone so that banks, and it's back to our conversation about the TradFi, can look at their DeFi partner and say, okay, those guys, they are equivalent like us, SOC 2 Type 2, or they are ISO 27001 or NIST, but in the crypto world. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, it's interesting how your question sort of landed on SOC 2, ISO 27001, and NIST. And let's just face it, those are the big three where with the Web 2 security community landed. Hopefully you've got SOC 2 Type 2. Hopefully as well, you can speak to NIST cybersecurity framework. And if you're really good, maybe you've even gone as far as a certification against ISO 27001 or the other ISO standards, because there are many of them. As someone with an international background, I will say that I do appreciate the international reach of the International Standards Organization, ISO. But I also have a huge amount of respect for NIST as well, especially in the US and the work that they've done. So in my opinion, these early stage standards that are getting developed and they're incredibly in depth, they represent the amazing capabilities and insights of the leading experts in crypto security, whether we're talking about CCSS, the C4 standard, whether we're talking about the Blockchain Security Standards Council, and there are some other initiatives as well, including Halborn. I feel like this is all going to trickle up into probably the big three at the end of the day. I can't really see a number four coming along. I think it'll head in that direction, and I think it's just a natural journey that we're starting in the right place. We're starting with the experts coming around, putting their heads together, and articulating what is the minimum baseline that should be expected, whether it's key management or smart contract development or something else. And that will, I think, trickle up, if you will, is that a thing? Feed up into the infrastructure that is the sort of global reach of the leading standards organizations of all sorts of kinds, right? From ISO, the NIST series, which is extensive, and maybe the SOC 2 Type 2 as well. So that's sort of my general feeling on where we're going to go with standards and certifications.
Yeah, we tend to agree with that vision. So, for instance, Halborn, we are member of 7 work group in the ISO TC 307, which is dedicated to our world, to the DLT technology, and we try to influence and shape things, and that's really our DNA, because our DNA is to be at this intersection of Web 2 and Web 3. And I think, to your point, if those big 3 organization group could adopt gold standards in the Web3 space, it would, I would say, even accelerate the adoption for large traditional institutions, because they would be looking at partners like us, but more importantly, DeFi partner for decentralized exchange or whatever they need to really launch their new services, to launch their digital asset plan. And they would be saying, okay, those guys are absolutely conform. They have this level of compliance with what we are expecting from them. But it's also a journey, right?
Well, it is a journey, and we are a little ways from the end, I think, of our journey. My day-to-day focus on information sharing, I'm happy to see also being recognized by and adopted by standards and regulations, because we're, adjacent to standards, we also see the sort of regulatory infrastructure maturing as well, as it relates to risk management and cybersecurity. And legacy institutions like the FS ISAC have been recognized by regulators for years as an indicator of maturity on the part of the industry that they represent. Sometimes, even explicitly, there you'll see language now in DORA, for example, that talks about information sharing and, joining a community that enables information sharing as it relates to cybersecurity and other forms of technology risk management. So it's also heartening from where I sit to see that explicitly start to get folded into some of this larger guidance, these regulations and these standards, recognizing that sometimes, especially with regulators, there's and even within the standards themselves, there's this line of being too prescriptive, where you don't see a certain level of detail that sometimes
It's a balancing act.
engineers are looking for, for the explicit guidance. So there's a line there, and it'll be interesting to see how much of that detail really folds into some of these with regards to crypto and DLT security, how much of that detail really gets folded into the larger bodies of standards management providers like us or like NIST.
But we have what we experience, day to day, when we do our I would say, preventive and shift to the left cybersecurity operation with our customer, or engagement with our customer. When customers are pure Web3, sometimes they do shortcut, and sometimes they want us to deal with, for instance, credential in a way which is in contradiction with what SOC 2 Type 2 would let you do without being in violation of the standard. So I think that if we could start, if you as well, because you are, as again, I said that in the beginning, you are a beacon from that standpoint, really voice that, because in fact, all that big galaxy of DeFi they need to be able to work with big TradFi. Okay, sometimes they have us to play the middleman, sometimes they don't. And that's where I think that crypto ISAC has also a big role to play, to raise their attention to those gold standards and to those behavior and policies.
Yes, I agree. One thing that we didn't talk much about is the membership within Crypto ISAC, but it's a really diverse membership. It's more diverse than you might see in other ISACs in other sectors. We talked about the sort of threat landscape, but if you think about DeFi and where a lot of these technologies are coming from, there are investors who focus on this space, right? Who are enabling this growth of DeFi and DApp development. And so we've at the Crypto ISAC even got VC such as Ribbit Capital and others, Electric Capital, involved as members to help us send this message that you just articulated through to their portfolio companies, their DeFi developers and their earlier stage portfolio companies who, again, sort of shifting left, secure by design, need to think about this sooner rather than later. So lots of tentacles across the ecosystem to try to send this message. Because to your point, this is supply chain as it relates to feeding into TradFi and big banking and big finance. These are the dependencies that these larger institutions will be looking to evaluate. And I'll also just add with regards to standards, when we started up at Crypto ISAC, we recognized the role that standards and certifications play in terms of the infrastructure we built too. So the technology that we adopted comes with the SOC 2 Type 2, it's FedRAMP ready, it's ISO 27001, because it's a trust enabler. At the end of the day, I'm asking my member companies to start sharing sensitive data and sensitive information. Right. They have a certain level of confidence that this is going over infrastructure that meets those baselines and holds those certifications.
Yeah, that's a little bit eat your own dog food in terms
100%.
of privacy and data, how you handle data at the end of the day. Well, we are slowly but surely coming to the end of that really, for me, fascinating dialogue with you, Justine. Maybe last comment from your side with regard to what we have discussed, last observation, and I will allow myself to do the same after.
I think I'd like to sort of try to leave us on is where we really collaborate between Crypto ISAC and Halborn. The insights and the capabilities that you have across the spectrum that we've discussed are an enabler for the next sort of phase of Crypto ISAC. We started standing ourselves up, setting up the infrastructure, tactically enabling our members to share information and to share data. And there's a certain volume of data that we've achieved now where we're at the point where we can start thinking about how to get a little bit more thoughtful about the analysis that we can conduct on this data. What happens when we fuse this data? What happens when we meld Web 2 IOCs, as much as we've discussed not liking that term, indicators of all kinds with Web 3 indicators of all kinds.
Early indicator and late indicator.
Perfect. Sure, I've got to change those acronyms. What can we do? And this becomes a bit of a data science problem, right? It becomes an expertise problem. I need the experts across that sort of threat landscape to help us with that. And this is, I think, one of the reasons I'm excited to be working with you all at Halborn is to bring that expertise to it, to enable that sort of next phase of fusion and analysis on top of the data, to be a little bit more thoughtful and to allow us to really make sure that what we're delivering for our members is useful, is actionable, is realistically actionable for our members. So that's where we're going next, is to that level of depth, and very, very excited about and grateful for collaborating with you all at Halborn on that.
Thanks, we appreciate that. And let me jump on something you have just used in terms of wording, actionable. And that makes me, as a bridge with healthcare, actionable insights. So what we need in cybersecurity, especially in the Web3 space, because we have so little time to intervene in case of incident or no time, we need those actionable insights. And I believe that you guys, working with us together and with many others in your ecosystem, we can get much more of those actionable insights to be proactive against the threat actors, to understand them better, and to have those early warning signals that we need to prevent incident to happen, because again, when you are on chain, your money is gone, or when they are on chain, your money is gone. And we are very much convinced at Halborn that the shift left is absolutely crucial, but it needs to be informed by partners like Crypto ISAC and what you do, and this collaboration across the board. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jacques. Pleasure. Thank you for having me.